Welcome to Cents and Sensibility, where we like to talk about money, but without the stress. I'm Chris, here with my co-host,
Philip,
and
Cambria.
So each week we'll be diving into simple, tips and tricks to make the money work for you, plus insights from certified professionals. So today we're actually gonna be talking more about debt horror stories again. And yeah, let's just dive on into things and, see if hopefully the horror stories don't relate to you, but they do. Hopefully we can give you some tips and tricks and some insight. So getting things started, I guess, how'd you get into all this being a certified debt consultant and such?
Well, at first, it's not too exciting, but I did start helping people with their taxes. And honestly, one thing after the next, just started diving into a new realm of finances, and I ended up having a niche for it, helping people. It's one of my strong suits, right? Really putting value into what I do. But yeah, then I took a course and took a class on being a certified debt consultant, and figured out that it's an area in the finance realm that people need a lot of help in, right?
Yeah.
Trillions of dollars in debt in the nation, and
Pretty bad.
you'd be surprised. I mean, you don't really truly understand how much debt people are in, and people don't necessarily understand how much they're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Until they bring the light of the situation. But I don't know, I guess it kind of just molded into debt consulting, and from there it's just been kind of just focused on that moving forward, kind of let the taxes business and that side of my career kind of go in the shadows, but now we're focusing on debt.
Hell yeah, no, I respect that. I mean, I feel like, at least with the whole, because there was an actual article, I think it was probably in the last month or two, with the political scene right now. It's oh my gosh, we're $33+ trillion in debt. I'm like, how are we in debt to ourselves? One, you would think we print more money, whatever it is. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's good that I think there's people like you, obviously, just willing and wanting to help people, because one, debt's not easy. I think I was telling Michael, I was yo, I had $2,000 in debt recently, and that shit was stressing me out. I don't know how people oh yeah, I got $180,000 in a school loan just looming over me and all this crap. I'm just yeah, it's crazy. I couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But so diving on into things, that we got a little bit about your background. So I would like to know, what's the wildest kind of story or situation you've ran into dealing with folks with debt, that kind of just made you say what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, you do get a lot of that on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there's kind of a couple that it ranges from. I mean, one I just saw recently was a couple who did a co-signing on their niece's credit cards and her private student loan debt. She kind of disappeared. And then
Kind of noticing a trend.
yeah, so it just disappeared, and they seriously couldn't get a hold of her. But then they're left with the debt, right? Because they aren't a co-signer, so it's essentially their debt now. But they're paying. I mean, the amount of debt that they had was around $200,000 to $300,000. Given that a lot of it was the student loan.
Jesus Christ! Dude, if yeah, that shit would make me throw up.
Yeah, and given they still have their credit card debt too, so allotting to everything. With their mortgage payment was around $1,500 a month, and their credit card payment was $3,000 a month. And given the $3,000 payment they're making, it's not getting them out of debt, right? So that was pretty crazy. But I'd say, I mean, not even geared toward the more average consumer side, right? From people who are ranging from $20,000 in debt to $40,000 in debt. The horror story is the fact that they're paying more every month toward their credit card bill, right? Than anything. And that bill that they're paying, it's not getting them out of debt. They're just paying into compounding interest, and they'll be, reality, they'll be paying that for the next 20 to 40 years, and 2 to 3 times the amount they owe, which is crazy, right? I didn't really realize that as a person before I started getting into debt, right? I mean, I've never used credit cards that crazy, but now I know.
Yeah.
Don't use credit cards.
Well, but that's the thing. It's
We'll have to, but
yeah, I was gonna say, because I know for me it was when I was in the Air Force, they were oh hey, here's a black card. limitless, if you will, right? Like, obviously, you use it only for official purposes only when you're traveling, yada, yada, yada. And so, like, granted, like, you use the card in the military or Air Force or whatever, will reimburse you the money to pay that card. Granted, it's not fucking perfect because, like, the federal government sucks with money and all that fun stuff, but you're like, okay, I trust the government. I'm just a young idiot, whatever. And you're thinking, like, hey, this should, like, help me, right? This should build my credit, right? And surprise, it fucking doesn't.
Yeah.
And I would see people rack up, like, tens of thousands, if not, like, 60 plus, just because, like, you know, you go on a trip, you're paying for everything, you're just swiping the card.
Yeah.
Thinking, like, hey, I'm
Build
good.
that up quick.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're in debt. And, like, for me, like, my experience was seeing someone I knew rack up, like, I think it was, like, 36 grand. I was like, yo. And then what's crazy is, like, the card, like, all this stuff is, like, obviously through, like, the government. But they're like, hey, surprise, you owe us this money. We're like, wait. And, you know, don't you owe the money? Like, it was this whole thing. And so it's, like, weird because I think most people think it's, like, oh, like, it's my money. No, it's, like, literally, like, monopoly money that, like, it's not yours. And I think people just kind of, like, think it's, like, money they can just spend willy-nilly. And
Yeah.
Can't.
But it comes back to bite you.
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I mean, if you're at $300,000 in debt, you're just paying what, $2,000 in interest every month just to
Fucking
keep that
cooked.
debt up.
Just to keep the debt, right?
Yeah,
It
and
doesn't
not
even.
fall into bankruptcy. Yeah,
Jesus.
Which at that point, you know, it's probably
You might as
you
well.
might as well just let it fall behind and put yourself first, right?
Yeah.
Not doing anything to help you. You're just burning cash.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. No, see, and I'm like you in regards like I don't like credit cards. I don't use I try not to. It's like, hey, if I really have to, and like I have no other choice, sure, fuck it, so be it. But yeah,
I mean, yeah, there's people out there who, like, I deal with on a day-to-day basis who rely on these cards, but they don't realize, like, sometimes they're at a 90% utilization and the credit card companies can just lower your utilization. They can also increase your interest rate without your their
Yeah.
right? So then they'll go to swipe their card and they'll be like, well, I'm supposed to have $300 left and now it's saying my card's declined. And that's just what they'll do. And then again, you're just stuck with this sitting balance. You can't use the card, but you have to pay the minimum, which you're going to be stuck with that minimum for the next 30 to 40 years.
it's that fine print, that variable interest rate.
Yeah.
Gonna get you.
Yeah, just straight. Yeah, just, you know. But so like in regards to, you know, obviously you mentioned like people relying on things and such and so on and so forth. What's like, I guess, you know, obviously you're dealing with a lot of people. People are telling you their stories and situations and whatever it may be. But like, what's like a common mistake you see people make with like either handling their debt or their finances that gets them into like that debt cycle, or like you said, because it's like, oh, hey, they may pay it off or do something, but then other people, hey, it's just chasing them, you know, for how many ever X amount of years.
I say the biggest thing that it sometimes it takes a lot more tries to really ingrain into some people, but a lot of people will be stuck on, like I said, their utilization will be fully, completely maximized, or again, they're not really using those cards, or if they are, right, they're still paying this huge payment, but they're super concerned about their credit score, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is throughout the process of the program, yes, you do have to take one step back, right, before 3 huge steps forward. But with the program, you have to let these people know, look, it's not right now with your credit, right, with your utilization being so high, as well as your debt to income ratio, the odds of you being lendable with your current score, it makes your score just a number, right? So let us help you help yourself, right? You are going to put yourself first, take one step back, let us do the heavy lifting, right? And then over time, it'll help your profile be cleaned up and clear your credit score.
Yeah. So what? Okay, then I guess, because I know for me it was just like I recently found this out, but I mean, like not everybody knows it, and like I think financial literacy is very important. But like, what's the whole like, I guess, difference between like credit utilization and then credit score? Because I forgot where I read it, or like learned about it, but they're like obviously two different things, but they kind of work together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have one, you can't have the other, or like if you don't have one, the other one kind of doesn't mean like
Yeah.
fuck all.
Well, in regards to, I mean, obviously, if you have a credit score, there's other factors that play into that, right? In terms of you being lendable. So if
Yeah.
the lender's going to go in there, they're going to take a look and say, look, the first thing they're going to look at mainly is your utilization, right? So your debt to income ratio. So how much you make a month compared to how much debt you have, right? They're going to see if you're going to be able to pay them back as a lender, right? Then the second thing they're going to look at is your utilization. Like how far in this process or how much have you spent on the credit line you already have? Meaning that's relating back to your minimum payment, right? If you're fully utilized, your payment's going to be higher. So they know that you are already obligated to pay off this debt, which will make you less lendable. Even if you have a 700 credit score, right? It's not the score necessarily, it's the factors that are involved that make you lendable. But yeah, I mean, in that regards, that's kind of what you have to bring to light to people is like, look, I mean, you can, especially in our economy, right? You can go try to get a car, a house, like the interest rates you're going to get, they're not going to be great, especially, you know, if you have debt already, it's not going to help you very much.
Yeah, because I remember I think I was like, I don't remember what, it was like, I want to say it was my first car. I was trying to buy a car. I went through one lender and they're like, no. They're like, oh, your credit score is too low kind of thing. I was just like, well, that doesn't make sense to me because one, like, I don't have any bad debt. Like, I don't owe people nothing. I don't owe anybody anything. So, like, so why does my score being low even matter? You know, so like, I can only get my score up if I get debt or loans or whatever. So, like, you're not helping me get my score up, but you want me to get my score up. So, like, I'm confused. It was like a very, like, weird thing and experience in my life that, like, looking back, I'm just like, the system's broken. It's fucking flawed. I hate it. Yeah. It is what it is.
I mean, even when I got my first credit card, I had to get like an authorized user signer on it, whatever. But I was confused when they were explaining it to me. They're like, yeah, you need to spend money, right? But then also, you know, you don't want to pay it all back so that they could see that you're paying back some line of credit. But then over time, I was like, no, like I'm literally paying into interest.
Yeah.
So I just started paying it. As long as you pay it back in full, right? You still put a balance on it so you're using it. But it's just, again, no one knows how much they're getting killed on the interest. And then if you don't make that payment, it adds on, and then it's compounding. Now you're paying on the interest, not even the principal.
Yeah. What about you, Phil? What's your first time like?
Phil ain't allowed to have a credit card.
Yeah, I mean, credit cards can get you. I mean, it's easy to think that that's your money and that it's available for you to use, and it's hard to understand that you're going to have to pay that back, and if you don't do it immediately, you're going to pay interest on it every month until you pay double, triple the price of what you just put on there. So yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand, like, that's not their money. Like, it's a line of credit that they're going to have to pay back.
Yeah.
And that's where they get you too in the beginning. They're like, you need to spend some money on this card to actually build up your score. And then you're stuck with a balance of $500 and maybe you don't have the money available to spend that each month, and then you're paying interest on that.
Or they'll offer you a year free of no interest, right?
Oh, I was about to say it again. That I heard that.
Year goes by and you're like, oh wait, now I'm at a 34% interest rate, and I'm like screwed. So
you're trapped.
Yeah,
you're locked up. They won't let you out. Yeah, no, because I want to say, like, I think my brother got with that. Like, I remember when I was a kid, or like way younger, and he was like telling me, he's like, oh, I got credit card debt, and he was just going off.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, like, I'm like, what do you mean you're in, like, you owe the Bank of America like $7,000 or something? To me, that was like a lot, right? I was a kid. I was like, yo, that's crazy. I can't even fathom that right now. But he was just like, yeah, this thing. He was like explaining to me, but, you know, obviously going over my head, I was like, you're speaking gibberish to me right now. But yeah, $7,000, bonkers.
Even $7,000, you'll be paying that for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? And then regular interest rate of 20%.
Yeah. You end up paying $14,000 on your $7,000.
Yeah. And then that's your principal. Now you're $21,000 out of pocket for the
No, F that. But like, okay, so since obviously people getting trapped and things like that and like getting caught up in like crazy situations, have you ever had like somebody that come on the phone and you're just like, you hear their story and you ever just thought like, this person's really just fucked for life? Like, not like so bad so that like they can't make it out, but you're like, how in the hell did you get here?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot where like there'll be people with like 30 open lines of credit, like 30 open different cards, and I'm like, how with like 70K? I'm like, I get that it's maybe a slow burn, but like I don't understand personally, because there's a certain limit on how many cards like, let's say you go apply for 3 credit cards, you try to apply for a 4th, they're gonna be like, look, you're gonna have to wait since there's too many inquiries, whatever. sometimes I'm kind of perplexed about how many people have. And then in regards to like, I mean, in an outlook of like, dang, like they're not going to be getting out of debt. It's the people who think that they can go, they can get a personal loan and pay off the debt, which again, in our economy, if you have 70K in debt with your 70K that you have, right? They're already looking at how much debt you have. You're most likely not going to qualify for an entire 70K loan to pay off that debt. And then also your interest rate is still going to be pretty much, as bad as it is now, if not worse. Or they'll go and try to secure, take out a refi, or they'll take out a line of credit from their home. It's like they're securing their unsecured debt now with their secured debt. They're taking out a line of, credit from their house when they don't need to do that, right? But sometimes just the people who don't understand, right? It's just harder to really make people understand, like, look, there's a way to help you, and if you don't want the help, like, unfortunately, you're going to be paying that debt off for the next 30 years.
I can't even imagine, like, because
and that's given what you have, right? Not given what you're gonna still be spending, so that's just gonna lengthen your term.
Because I don't know why this is probably just like so random, but I remember I think it was I don't know, like 5-6 years ago. So I went to a chiropractor and he's like, "Oh yeah, you have a messed up back. Like your wallet's too thick. You got too many cards in there. I had a variety of random just crap in there." And I'm thinking like, "Yo, somebody with like 30 freaking cards, dude. What kind of back problems must they have?" Just like casually, you sit on that wallet and you're just like hunched the entire all the time.
Well, more like, how do you sleep at night?
Oh, that too. Yeah, no, I couldn't. I would be stressed.
Where did you get the back problem from?
Yeah.
For rolling over in your sleep.
Phil, what would you do if you had 70 grand in debt?
I think I'd call Done with Debt and see what they could do for me first. And if that didn't work, go to Mexico, maybe?
Mexico, yeah. No, I mean, Dana White said something about taking all the fights in Mexico.
We're going to do reverse immigration. We're going to start moving to Mexico.
I mean, hey, the dollar is pretty strong in Mexico right now. Peso's down. I'm just saying, if you want to live like a fucking king, like, maybe that is the move.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. For me, it's just, like, one of those things, too, like, on that is just more so, like, I'm like, yo, if you just acquire so much debt, why don't you just, like... I mean, obviously, at a certain age, I would just say, like, F it. Let me just die with it. Because, within... If they're not going to go after my family or anybody I know, then, like, sure, so be it. Right? But, yeah.
But let's say that you have a home and these things, right? And then you have this debt and you die with it. Then when you pass on that home to your kids, they're going to come take a lien out on your home.
Well, yeah. That's
right?
it.
So
if you took it out, like...
You can't escape it, but at the same time, they're going to find a way if they want to find a way.
Ugh. Sickos, let me tell you. I don't know. The system's broken. It's flawed. It is what it is. But now, I guess if someone obviously who's listening, watching, whatever it may be, if they're feeling obviously in their current situation, overwhelmed with their debt right now, what would be like, maybe let's say a course of action you would tell them to do, if they had like 10 or 15 or more $1,000 in debt, because I feel like that's a pretty reasonable number at a certain point.
Yeah.
But what would you tell them to do? Like step 1, step 2, whatever.
I mean, step 1, I'd say call, right? Get out there, call, especially companies like us, right? Dealt with debt. And just call with an open mind, right? They're not there to sell you. They're not there to, pressure you into anything, where they're here to take a look at what's going on with your current situation and if there is a viable option for you. So, give them the 15 to 10 minutes of your time and, lay it out. And that's where you'll start, right? If there's something there for you, then great. You can go through the details and, work through that. I'm sure they'll be able to answer your questions, but it's more so just really taking the 5 to 10 minutes out of your day just to listen and talk about your situation and just see if there's anything that you can be done. Because I get a lot of people that call in closed-minded, even though they hear about us, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, how does this work?" And then I'll be like, "Okay, well, let's get it." I mean, I can give you everything right now, but it doesn't really fit their question as like what they're asking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just not like for everybody's situation.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, and then some people are like, "Oh, I get it," and they'll hang up. I'm like, "Well, you really don't get it," but I mean, I'm not gonna waste my time while I'm in a text. Like,
yeah, I mean, and they clearly don't get it because they're the ones with like crippling debt. But you know, I mean, yeah. So okay, that's fair because I feel like that's solid. Just because for me, I think if I was in that position, let alone like when I had like the 2000 whatever, like I never wanted to talk about it. So I think like just taking that first step was probably be like a good thing. But obviously that's like the toughest thing. It's like drug addicts, you know. It's like the hardest thing to do is just admit that you have a fucking problem.
Yeah.
No one wants to admit they're $70,000 of debt.
And you get a lot of people too who like they're calling on behalf of their sons or themselves, right? And they don't want their spouse to know.
Oh yeah, a lot of
Secrets.
hiding it from their spouse.
Oh
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, like, because they'll have joint accounts and stuff. But the thing is, I mean, it's a much easier conversation to have with your wife or your husband that you have this debt, but you have a solution rather than the conversation that you're going to be paying the $70 Hermes bag $70,000 Hermes bag that she wants and interest just burning it, right? Or not, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a car. Maybe something else.
yeah. If I was starting 70 grand on a bag, or my wife or whoever, future baby mama, like,
And then throwing it away.
like, yeah, we go in the court. I'll take illegal action because that is, well, that's just wild. Personally, after the whole Balenciaga like scandal, it's like, oh, you paying $5 grand, but it takes them like $50 to make it.
I mean, I personally would never. I'm just
Everybody's out.
like,
No, that's good though. I mean, I think for folks,
travel for 70 grand, right?
yeah, you're taking a vacation for a whole ass year.
Last year. I mean, that's someone's annual take home. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, 70K. That's
That's like the top. I mean, national average at least. Like, you're making more than the top like 10% people, unfortunately, because that's how bad it is. Like,
you're living comfortably.
yeah, 70 grand, you live it.
Yeah.
Especially if if that's just tax free. That's like the take home. That's good. But no, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. So obviously to your point, so the show's or today's episode also sponsored by Done with Debt. Obviously they have a great team of certified debt professionals like Cambria. So if you do have any kind of debt, and you do have questions, or you're just looking to call and inquire and see maybe it's a good situation for you or like your circumstances, you can go to donewithdebt.com. If you don't want to call in, fill out easy form. And if you do want to call in, you just like to talk, 5 to 10 minutes, right? Pretty quick. 888-322-1054. So yeah, give them a call. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. So thanks for hanging out. If you did enjoy the podcast, sorry, I'm like, I had like a sneeze and I was just like, oh, but yeah, if you did enjoy the podcast, obviously feel free to subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. But till next time, keep your your sense and sensibilities in check.
There you go.